Hello, and good afternoon. I really do appreciate everyone joining us today. In one of our films from last year, Spotlight, there is a wonderful scene between Liv Schreiber, who plays Marty Baron, the editor of the Boston Globe, and Michael Keaton, playing Robbie Robertson, the editor of the Spotlight team. Baron is focused on making the newspaper essential to its readers, and Robinson replies, "I'd like to think it already is." Baron answers back, "Yes, well, I'd like to think we can do better." Since participants' first day, we've been committed to entertainment that inspires social change, work that has a very real and very growing audience. I'm here because we think we can actually do better, and working with you guys and everybody here is central to doing just that. Jeff Skoll founded Participant on an idea that was pretty simple, and both simple and profound. He said if we produced socially relevant content, people would watch. And they wouldn't just watch, they would become more aware. And through that awareness, they would ask how they could get more involved in the experience, because it mattered deeply to them, and that our relationship with our audience and the value of our content would grow. And we could ultimately affect positive social change literally throughout the world. By the way, I don't want to suggest that we were the first to connect storytelling to social causes. Gandhi, Aaron Brockovich, Schindler's List, Brokeback Mountain. Impactful storytelling is part of our shared history, and it's exactly what inspired Jeff from the beginning, and for good reason. When people see the world as it is, they get to work on the world they want to see. Participant exists to tell this kind of stories that can become a catalyst for the growing global audiences who want content that is about something, and for those who also want to do something. And by engaging that audience, our films have already grossed more than $2 billion at the global box office, won many awards, and been broadcast and streamed countless times around the world. And they've also achieved real social impact, so real worldwide social impact, particularly in 3 areas. First, by raising awareness. Second, by contributing to behavioral change. And third, by helping shape policies that lead to real systemic change. Not everyone agreed that there would be a global market for a film featuring a former vice president of the United States standing on a stage, walking an audience through a slideshow about global warming. 10 years later, we stand amidst a global movement to slow and ultimately end climate change, a movement that began in many ways with an inconvenient truth. We also produced a documentary called Food Inc., and we found that 50% of the people who saw the film said it changed their lives. Today, years after the film came out, we are still engaging in a community of more than 2 million people through the Food Inc. Facebook page. And the United States currently accounts for 25% of all incarcerated individuals, despite having only 5% of the world's population. 3 years ago, in conjunction with the movie Snitch, we provided storytelling, lobbying, and fundraising resources for NGOs working with lawmakers to help repeal the mandatory, incredibly punitive juvenile sentencing laws that exist in the United States. And since Snitch was released, 13 states have repealed such laws. That's what impact entertainment means and what it can do. And by the way, just so we know, each of these projects was profitable. And we don't do it alone. Participant is working with film studios like Universal, Focus, Lionsgate, and Paramount, television networks with traditional and digital channels such as National Geographic, HBO, and Showtime, and increasingly pure digital players such as Netflix, YouTube, Facebook, and as you will hear in a few minutes, Snapchat. To paraphrase Spotlight one more time, I'd still like to think we can do better. What's changed since Jeff defined his vision 12 years ago? What makes this moment unique? What brings us to MIPCOM today? And how can we all make the most of it? Well, we live in a world that is more connected, but is also more complex. There are so many interconnected challenges the world faces, from a changing planet to girls' access to education to the global refugee crisis. Content that can help illuminate and make sense of this complexity is a vital part of our industry and a vital part of what we all do. And audiences know it. They are more aware, they are more responsive, and they are more engaged. Particularly our favorite audience that we all know and love, Millennials. Millennials now represent the largest generation of consumers. Globally, we're talking about approximately 2 billion people. That's a lot of consumers. But it's not just their value, it's what they value and how they make decisions. They are socially conscious citizens who care about the world around them. For those of you in the advertising community, you'll know these statistics very well. One survey recently found that globally, almost 3/4 of millennials will pay a premium for sustainable products and services. Another found that a similar number believe companies should create economic value for society by addressing its most pressing needs. And countless studies show that consumers expect brands to support good causes, and that they are willing to switch to brands that deliver on this promise. There's a hunger for entertainment and a hunger for increased social action. Content that can meet this demand by doing both will be increasingly valuable going forward, especially as audiences are consuming more content than ever before, and at more times, and in more places, on more devices, and on more platforms. And that's the opportunity for those of us in the industry to fulfill the interests of our audiences with content, to do good in order to do well. If we tell more socially relevant stories, more consumers will invest their time, energy, and money in our content and in support of social causes. So how do we want to accomplish this? At Participant, we're going to double down on content across all formats. Our goal is to expand beyond film to create a steady drumbeat of resonant content for a global audience on the subjects and issues that they care most about. It means we're still very committed to films, both documentaries and narratives. And that means working with the very best in the creative community, like Alfonso Cuarón, Steven Spielberg, Laura Poitras, Peter Berg, Juan Antonio Bayona, and Ava DuVernay. It means an expansion of television content, which we've just begun in the past few months, including working on our first limited, non-scripted television series, America to Me, directed by the acclaimed filmmaker Steve James, creating a series of scripted series with the team from Spotlight that will look at journalists breaking important stories, and a scripted series based on our documentary 0 Days that the UK's Carnival Films will produce. A steady drumbeat of content also means continuing to develop and produce content for digital platforms, including our digital editorial presence, and moving aggressively into short-form video. Just a few days ago, we acquired the digital entertainment company Soulpancake, best name in the business, which was founded several years ago by Rainn Wilson, whom you may know from the US version of The Office. Soulpancake has a mission that is much like Participants and has already amassed 300 million video views, has 8.8 million social media fans, including 1.7 YouTube subscribers. Soulpancake produces content that travels across platforms, from YouTube to network television, and increasingly for social media platforms like Snapchat. In fact, let's take a look at a Snapchat story that Rainn made just for today's occasion. And if you have Snapchat on your mobile device, please get ready to snap Rainn directly. He's looking forward to it. He's expecting it.
Hello there, MIPCOM. It's me, Rainn Wilson. I'm on set in New Zealand doing a film where I battle a giant animatronic prehistoric shark with Jason Statham.
Yeah, it's a real thing. Look it up.
New Zealand is beautiful. It's basically the Canada of the South Pacific.
Anyway, I have some very exciting Soulpancake news to share with everyone, and I'm just trying to figure out which filter is best.
Nah. Wish I was there with you.
All right, I've got some facts to share in 10 seconds or less, and some really big news. Fact, I created Soulpancake as a vehicle to ask life's big questions and to make content that matters. Fact, there are more sheep in New Zealand than humans. Wait, that's completely unnecessary. How do you delete on Snapchat? No. Fact, I think content can be both entertaining and inspiring. And so I am beyond excited that Soulpancake has recently joined forces with Participant Media.
Hooray!
Wait a second, I have an idea.
What better way to celebrate our incredible partnership with Participant Media, the pioneers of making films that matter, than to elevate the whole purpose of emojis? Check it out. You love the environment, and you love a good emoji. What happens when you smash the two together? Now I bring you Snapchat's first environmental emoji story. A movement where we raise awareness about the important stuff by only using emojis. There it is again. Did you figure it out? It's an emoji story about the rapidly melting ice caps. Now it's your turn. Get out your phones. Come on, right now. Snap or tweet at Soulpancake with your emoji story. And I will share some of my favorites with my millions of fans. I am a famous actor, after all. Can you tell which one's the real rain?
MIPCOM was actually my very first market, and that was back in 1988. I was selling reruns of Time Life's The Wild Wild World of Animals and some American cable comedy specials. Not so easy, after all, or not so easy at all, actually, I should say. But many of my partners then are the same people who work with us today. The folks at E1, Nordisk, the Television Group, Sun Distribution, are all examples of companies I've known for decades. I'm back in recognition of how important this event is. I'm back in recognition of just how much the global market has changed, for entertainment content has changed and continues to change. At Participant, our story is really just getting started. We feel that this moment couldn't be more aligned with our mission, our purpose, and whether you are a broadcaster, a producer, an advertiser, since I can't see any of you, or a distributor, we'd like you to join us. We want to work together. We are looking for content and production partners like all of you in this room. Work with us because it's a good business, and join us to see how rewarding it is when you raise awareness, when you drive action, and become part of something that's essential to somebody's personal and our collective experience. The time is really now. Before Participant, Jeff Skoll was the first employee at eBay, creating a marketplace that didn't exist. To this day, he's an entrepreneur who starts his ventures by trusting that people, when given a chance, will do the right thing. I certainly won't argue with that strategy. I'll only add that when that means bringing together creativity, content, and a social conscience, what we can all do is limitless. Thank you very much. And now the presentee, I guess, becomes the presenter. And I'm very pleased to welcome Nancy Tartaglione from Deadline, and Sam Neswick, our one and only COO from Participant. Thanks.
Hi guys, David, thank
Nancy.
you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. I want to just get right into it. You talked about doubling down on content, and I wonder what that means within the context of ceasing to put energy and focus into Pivot TV, your channel, which is going to stop broadcasting at the end of the month.
Well, I think the, first of all, these are incredibly difficult decisions to make, right? And I think the most important thing that everybody understands is that we were immensely proud of the people at Pivot. They did a really, really good job. They were incredibly committed to both Pivot and the organization. But you also have to make difficult decisions. And one of the difficult decisions that you always have to make is, are you applying your resources in the most effective way possible? Mm-hmm. And the reality is, as a individual, independent operator of a broadcast cable network in the United States, it's tough business, right? Sure. And ultimately, we just made the decision that those resources were better allocated somewhere else. And as you just heard in the speech, it's largely going to go to content, right, and a company that is going to be much more platform agnostic.
Right. Okay. So you just mentioned a couple of the new TV projects. How does the film business that you're in influence or inform that television, that expansion into television content?
Well, I think all these businesses should inform each other, and I'll go to the creative side of it, which is, what we're experiencing with the kinds of filmmakers and artists that want to work at Participant, because we're finding increasingly that people enjoy the experience of working with an independent studio, so to speak, is they're no longer confining themselves to one platform or media. You know, somebody who's been trained in film is just as interested in digital short form programming or television. And so what I'd like to see is I'd like to see more of that, more consistency of the artists that we're working with. And that means including the people who are making films with us, but also, you know, we see Soulpancake as potentially an incubator for talent, right? They're creating so much material at the moment, every day of the week, that should be an opportunity for their artists to find ways to start working with the larger company.
So is it, before we turn to Soulpancake, is it about kind of creating a stable of filmmakers, or at least a place where people know they can come? That's
I think I learned a long time ago that, you know, you can put into a contract that you have an option on somebody, and unless they actually like you, that piece of paper isn't worth very much, and can actually create an antagonistic relationship. So what we want people to do is enjoy the experience, right? We want people to come here. We don't, you know, we would never force any sort of, you know, contractual language on people like that. What we're looking to do is to create the most conducive atmosphere for an artist to create. So.
Okay, so turning to Soulpancake, Sam, maybe you can talk about how that acquisition was strategic for you guys.
Sure, we looked at a number of criteria in considering an outright acquisition, and you know, of course, we look at financial return potential. Then there were really 3 other criteria, and the first of which is quality, and we love what they're doing. They're making pretty popular series like Kid President and Science of Happiness and My Last Days, and a lot of that content starting out in a short form setting is actually translating to television, and so that's really exciting for us. I think another thing that we looked at was their brand. They have a brand, they're talking directly to their audience, and they really have a passionate following. And then third is the alignment of the mission, and Rain started Soulpancake to make the world a better place, so it just became a perfect marriage, and it came together very, very well.
Yeah, and branding is so important right now.
Yes.
With the proliferation of different distribution platforms and whatnot, how does the sort of Netflixes and Amazons of the world, how do they affect a company like Participant?
Yeah, I think we've moved beyond the point of looking at these platforms as an opportunity, and we're looking at them as a strategic imperative for us. And I think a lot of content companies are looking at it that way. What it means for us is, as David was describing, it's an expansion of content, and in particular television and short form, digital short form video. The important thing to note about these platforms, Netflix and Amazon, they're all very different. They're not homogenous, and so Netflix and Amazon are going to be different from YouTube and you know, different from Facebook and so on. Different audiences, different viewing habits, and so being able to tailor the content for each platform is going to be key in this expansion.
Right, and you said you intend to be platform agnostic.
Absolutely, and the only thing that I'd add to that is, you know, you want your content to find the right home, right? And so just obligating yourself in certain ways may ultimately not be conducive for any version of success of the platform, of the piece of content or material. And we're very, very conscious of that, of finding material that's right for the right distribution platform, so that both parties are as engaged as possible.
Sure. So. Okay, and speaking of being engaged and being socially relevant, you're not alone in this space. There are more companies that are starting to enter this space. How does Participant sort of maintain its leadership position?
Well, it's who we are, right? We spend 100% of our time making this kind of material or content or whatever it is that you want to call it. And I'd argue that, you know, I guess imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, right? But it's actually for a reason. It's not because we do it. It's because the audience wants it, right? And so, you know, there are lots of organizations, Impact Vice, you know, Discovery is creating fantastic programming around saving the planet. Anonymous Content just received a very significant investment, and a lot of their work is going to go into socially relevant programming. We see all of these people as our potential partners, and in fact we've worked with Anonymous on multiple films, including Spotlight. But I think that the differential that people should understand is this is at Participant, we have an entire department which we call our social impact department, which is not imitated anywhere else by any other company. And this is a group of people who come from the social impact space. And what they do is they engage in discussing and reviewing what it is that we want to make at a very, very early stage. And they're thinking ahead about the kind of work that can be done.
Right.
And they're then engaging as the timeline of a movie or a show progresses, they're out there engaging the NGOs and the foundations and the organizations that are boots on the ground doing this work on a long-term sustainable basis.
How long is the kind of tail after that once you've put
well, it can
out
be, I mean, as you can
project?
see, you know, An Inconvenient Truth was 10 years ago, and I think Food Inc. was 8 years ago, right?
Okay.
Snitch was 4 or 5 years ago, and we used those in order to give people an idea of the importance of sort of sustaining the work that can be done. Mm-hmm. I think the challenge, not the challenge, but the goal for us really is to increasingly continue to support the work that's done on an individual and a singular basis, but increasingly try to find ways of connecting the dots
right.
through content.
Right.
Right? Because it's much more helpful for an NGO that's out there fighting the fight for climate change or against climate change if they can know that from Participant there's going to be a movie, there's potentially going to be a TV show, there's going to be short form programming from Soulpancake that's going to be actually out there beating that drum. And that's really the secret for us, or the secret sauce, is to create what we're calling sort of sustainable impact platforms.
Right. And you have an example with Joshua Oppenheimer's Look of Silence, where that kind of played out.
This is one of my, I've been at the company now for 11 months, and we co-produced a amazing documentary about the Indonesian genocide called The Look of Silence, which I doubt most of the people know about in this room because commercially it was quite small, but very important. It was shortlisted for the Academy Award. It won the Best Documentary at the Spirit Awards. You know, premiered at the Venice Film Festival. Is incredibly moving a story that Joshua directed. The people at Participant and our distributor in the United States, a company called Alamo Drafthouse, and Joshua, you know, yes, they wanted the movie to get out there, but they wanted to make a change. They wanted to engage. And what they did after the movie that came out was they organized, they were looking for something that could actually be meaningful and definable, and what they were very aware of was that the Indonesian government had never acknowledged the genocide. And they organized a group of Indonesian government officials to come to Washington, D.C. to meet with American government officials. And during the period that they were in Washington, one of the Indonesian officials announced that the Indonesian government was now effectively recognizing the genocide and would not have done it had the movie not existed. And that's, you know, that may be seen as something small. That's amazing. Right?
And it's a great example of
and
what
it's
you're
amazing,
trying to do.
and it's amazing because it was done by individuals, right? By a group of people who said they were going to take this movie and they were going to do something, and they did. It was great.
Excellent. It's about all the time we have. It's a perfect place to wrap up. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Great. Thank you.
Sorry.